Hey everyone, Anthony here with Pro Dealer Secrets. I want to welcome you to our Pro Dealer Secrets car flipping course, and congratulations on your purchase. What you've got here is the best, most comprehensive course available. And not only that, having bought it, you now have lifetime access to all videos, resources, the community, the group, and not only that, this is the only course available that is constantly updated and improved. So you're going to see over the course of time, it just keeps getting better and better and better. And that's something that nobody else can say. And that's why here we are absolutely the best at teaching what we do, as well as doing what we teach. So without further ado, let's kind of go over what this course is going to entail and the road that lays ahead. Our main purpose, of course, is going to be to flip cars better, faster, and for more profit. We'll go over some general housekeeping, which includes how things work, ways to access support, and similar things like that. Some important things to remember, including pitfalls to watch out for as you progress through this course, an overview of the course and what we're going to cover in each week, and a little bit about my background and story to give you some familiarity with how I've come to learn a lot of this information and why it will work for you. So, as you go through, there's a lot of information, and it's easy to get distracted by voices from the outside, constantly chasing different advice, different people telling you different things as you learn. But it's going to be important to remember that there's really three things that matter that get the most results in this process. And one, it's knowing your market and knowing exactly what cars are selling for and what's available at different prices. Especially in this course, we stress the under $5,000 price range. Number two is to inspect cars. The more you inspect cars, the better you get at it, the more opportunities you give yourself to buy a flip. And number three is to make offers. The more offers you make, obviously, the more cars you could potentially buy. So those are the three things that you are going to want to remember, and I've included this slide as a PDF if you look below this video here. And what you can do is print this out and put it on your wall or somewhere in your office. But just know that those three things: one, knowing the market; two, constantly inspecting cars; and three, making offers. Those are going to be your three top activity and results producing actions. So you'll be tempted to do anything other than the work and executing the process. Be sure to keep it simple and execute on these three things daily. So some general housekeeping. This program runs for 7 weeks. You have access to the content portal, Facebook group, and all resources for life, but you want to work your absolute hardest to execute this over 7 weeks. And that's a typo. It should say 7. 7 weeks go by fast. On a note, it could very easily be 9 weeks pretty soon, because we're working up some ideas, and I'm sure it's going to expand. So 7 weeks go by fast. Make sure you take action, stay focused, and don't rely on preconceptions. Be open-minded. There's a way that you've seen things done and a way that you've probably done things, but you're going to want to be open to seeing how there are different ways and many options to do the same thing. And here we don't want to build on top of false preconceptions. We want to kind of start from the ground up and build it into a system that you can use to repeatedly produce the same results. This program is designed to teach you that complete system from scratch. It may be tempting to skip through or disregard information because you do it better, or you've heard it of a different way, or there's a way you've always done it. But you must understand that the entire system that you learn interconnects from point A to Z. And ultimately, it really becomes greater than the sum of its parts, because as you piece together all the different things, they come together, as opposed to just learning a few things here and there and leaving out all the different parts. So, how to get help and support. One, make sure you watch the training videos in full and do the work. Most questions are answered in the videos, including, if you need to search keywords, we include transcripts where you can search the words. We include the slide files where you can flip through the slides real quick without having to watch the video. And there's MP3 available also for you to listen as you go about. And if you have a question, make sure to ask your question in the Facebook group, and somebody will get with you there. That's really our collective forum for the entire community to interact. And make sure you use specific questions and not stories to maintain clarity. A lot of times, if you're asking a question, it may get ignored or diluted if you have a ton of clutter in the post. So be clear, be direct, and that should get your questions answered pretty quickly. Try searching our help center also, which has FAQs, solutions to common problems. And if none of these methods work, shoot us an email at prodealersecrets@gmail.com, and one of our support staff will get back to you. So some important things to remember is that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme, and there are no flavors of the week, meaning no fads. We're not going to be, going over short-lived things that may or may not be around in the future. These core lessons are going to include business fundamentals that will last you a lifetime, but it does require work from your end. It will challenge you and push you outside your comfort zone, and that is necessary in order for any growth to happen, and for anything new to be learned and internalized into a process. You have to challenge yourself. You're not going to get rich quick, as some people may think, in terms of all of a sudden you're just making big money within a few weeks. That just doesn't happen, because those kinds of things, they don't have fundamentals to hold them for the long term. Anybody can make a quick buck, but time is your friend, and consistency is also your friend. Over time, you're just going to compound your results. And that's really what we teach here, is how to have a core skeletal system that you can adapt as the world goes on. Because who knows, in 5 years, cars may not even be sold on Facebook. There's going to be different advertising methods, marketing. There's going to be different kinds of cars. Everything's going to be different. But as long as you have the basic fundamentals, that is going to help you be able to adapt while maintaining a system that predicts results and is always going to work. We don't tolerate excuses. So make sure that that your life and results are precisely how you design them. You are responsible for your results and what you get in life and where you are. There are no shortcuts, and there's no one here to do it for you. You have to understand that everybody's choices adds up to their current environment. With that being said, in the group and support, if you're asking a question, something as simple as, I can't find this information or that, but it may be clearly laid out in a video, yet you refuse to go there and look at it or find it. There's no excuse for that. You're going to want to embrace the pain, which is, um, personal and business growth only comes from new experiences and new skills, no matter how comfortable or unpleasant. And most successful and wealthy people, they crave growth and the uncomfortableness and the unpleasantness of new experiences, because that's ultimately what really strives someone to grow. Being comfortable and never going outside of your comfort zone or learning new skills is a surefire way to always get what you've gotten so far in your life. And really ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? If you're going to pick up the phone and call someone and try to buy a vehicle, like, what's the worst that can happen? They can tell you to go away. There's plenty of worse things. You could be in the worst, poorest part of the poorest country and not even have access to a car, period, let alone here you are in America flipping cars. And no matter how bad we think we have it, it is always worse somewhere. So that's a big part of it, is just understanding that you're going to be fine. Just keep doing the work, keep learning, and keep trying. Because here I've been doing this for 7 years, and I've only really been doing it well for 2 years. It was just 5 years of constant not making money, absolutely not making any money, and struggle and failure. And I'll go over that in my story at the end of this video, and you'll kind of get an idea of, well, I'm going to help you skip that whole 5 years of just hell and awfulness. So make sure you do the work. If you just show up to the trainings, take notes, and don't do the work and take action, I can tell you now that nothing is going to change. You will not get results, and ultimately, this will lead back to making excuses. So these are the things to remember, and they ultimately make up the failure mindset. And these are some key points that you're going to want to avoid, because having the failure mindset is just, it's not going to get you anywhere, and we're just not going to entertain it. So what are some characteristics of that mindset? And one, feeling like you know everything. And this is pretty rampant in the car industry, period. But you don't want to come into this feeling like you already know everything, because why'd you buy the course then? And two, asking questions about how X relates to Z and trying to understand everything logically, and looking at the specific parts, but not the system. And what I mean by that is, you might say, well, what's the point in doing this? Why should I do this? Why should I do that? I don't understand. Well, everything's been designed to start from scratch and go all the way to the end in order. And if you are so obsessed with trying to understand everything super academically and not understanding that a week 1 skill is going to come into play in week 5, and you may not see it yet, you have to understand that it's a system. That's like asking, why does a car even have a certain fuse, or why does it have this part, and not realizing that if you zoom out, that one part becomes part of a bigger system that must have that part to function correctly. Number 3, telling stories instead of asking questions. And that would be, maybe trying to get people to feel sorry for you, or constantly telling stories in the groups, and kind of distracting people from their core purpose here, which is to learn the material, apply it, and to flip cars. This isn't necessarily a camping circle where everybody is sharing their life experiences and whatnot. Although you can do that, just be sure to, maybe add people to friend, PM them, build relationships, because there are going to be extremely valuable resources for you to learn from other people and what they see working. And number 4 is, if you're not asking the group for help or during Q&As, but then you start demanding one-on-one attention, that is typically, from my experience with past students, a sign that you may not take this seriously, or you are not in the right mindset. And instead, you're in the failure mindset. So if I didn't make that very clear enough, if there's clearly presented information, but you don't ask the group for help, and you may not ask that question during Q&A, but then you email support and you're demanding one-on-one attention, that's typically not a sign of someone who's successful. And a lot of these questions are clearly covered in the course. And lastly, playing the victim and blaming anyone other than yourself or anything, that is a surefire sign of failure, because when you place the responsibility of your results in someone else's hand, then you are giving up power over your life and you are willingly becoming a victim. And that is not something that is going to get you very far in life, let alone in this course and the results. So just know that you are solely responsible for everything that happens to you, and go from there. So you may have some initial doubts, such as, will this work? And why will it work? Why is this course different from any other course? And I will tell you, there are plenty of car flip courses out there, and most of them, if not all of them, suck because the person teaching the course is not as experienced, or they're regurgitating information. Sure, they might have flipped a few cars here and there, but ultimately they don't have the volume of data and experience that this course presents. And I'm going to go over a little bit about my story, which includes, here I've been doing this since 2013, for close to 7 years now, and I've flipped over 3,000 total cars. And not only does that include 3,000 cars, it includes probably well over 300,000 leads and communications with potential customers, as well as God who knows how many sleepless nights and worries. So starting in 2009, here I graduated high school. I went to RSU on a full ride scholarship, and not to brag, it just was something that happened. And I was a pretty shy person. I really didn't have any people skills, certainly no sales skills and no social skills. So to build those skills, I became a wedding DJ, to become more personable, whatnot. And then a few years later, I dropped out of RSU, which is in Claremore. It's a really small town, 30 minutes outside of Tulsa. And I gave up a full ride scholarship because I was tired of being isolated. So I moved into Tulsa for better opportunities, and graduated Northeastern State University with a degree in finance, which you'll see becomes painfully obvious throughout this course as you see the numbers and the formulas and the ratios I present. And then I started working at US Cellular, become as a phone salesman there, and kind of hone in the skills. And this is when one of my first business ventures started, which is I'm a Nerd Clothing. And it went for about a year, and throughout it, I didn't have any experience in business. I got a ton of publicity, a ton of newspaper articles. That's what these are from: magazine, newspaper, news interviews. But at the end of the day, it failed, and I lost over $5,000 because I didn't realize the importance of actual sales. I thought if I built all this hype, the sales would come, and that was a big mistake that I learned a lot from. So after that, in 2013, I went to go work at Bob Hurley Ford locally, which I worked there for 3 months before they fired me because I couldn't sell cars. The most cars I sold in a month for those 3 months was 2. And I was not great at this, and I was certainly wearing the failure mindset during this time. So I moved into these apartments here. You see these apartments up here. And I began flipping cars out of my parking lot. And it got to a point to where I had about 10 or 12 cars parked. And luckily it wasn't a completely full complex, but I got some pretty angry letters from the manager. And I was flipping cars out of my parking lot. And I had a dealer's license at this point. So it's kind of cool because I went from, flipping a few a month to being able to do like 5, 10, 15. And later in the course, I'll kind of go over how to, creatively get a dealer's license. So, of course, what did I do? In February 2014, I opened my first dealership called Nerd Automotive, and this is the first inventory that we had. About a week after we opened, and looking back, I just we liked Hondas and Toyotas and Mustangs, of course, and we overpaid so much. But I thought I really knew what I was doing. We thought we had a lot of opportunity, but ultimately, it failed. And here's the office down here because I had no one to teach me. I was literally starting this dealership from scratch, and my mechanic background is non-existent. I did not even know the difference between an engine and a transmission at this point in my life. I didn't know what the two were, let alone, how to inspect a car and how to know what's going on. And around the same time too, my friend recommended it. Hey, you should buy some Bitcoin. It's really cool. And this is another failure that I'm going to add to my list because at this time, if I would have just $1,000, I would have bought just $1,000 in Bitcoin. It would be worth well over $250,000 today. So of course now I'm heavily invested in cryptocurrency, and it's going, quite a big future ahead of it. But that's just a lesson in missing out on opportunities because I saw the value in it. I just thought it was dumb and it was a fad. Anyways, back to the dealership. We tried to do. Here we were trying to do financing. Didn't have a single bit of experience in financing vehicles or really any part of this entire dealership. So ultimately, it went out of business 2 years later, in February of 2016. After 2 years of just massive headache and bashing my head against the wall and not getting results and not making money. So after that, went out of business, took the losses. I lost around 80 grand total after all is said and done from that dealership. And then, we had to move into this house right here where the rent was like $500 a month, run down. And I did maintain my dealer's license. I kept it active, which cost me, a couple $100 a month at that point. But I wanted to be able to still flip cars. And so I did that. After a few months, I got a job working at this dealership down here, which is, out of business now. And he didn't listen to all the stuff I told him he should do in terms of marketing. Now, I worked here for about a month and a half, and he also fired me because I was not good at selling cars. And he did a lot of financing, a lot of nice cars, like $10,000 to $20,000 cars, and doing like nice financing, and I just wasn't good at selling. So here I'm in this house, and my wife still looks back, kind of angry that I'd have cars just lining up the grass and along the side and the other side of the road because after I got fired here, I had $500 in my pocket, and this was in April of 2016. So I went to the dealership. I bought a cheap little $500 car. It's like $400 plus a fee, and within a few days, I flipped it for like $800, and it was a quick sale, quick. Because I'll tell you, at the old dealership here, we bought a lot of $10,000 to $15,000 high expensive cars to finance, thinking we could make a lot of money financing vehicles. And that just wasn't the case. That presented a lot of risk. So I did the opposite. I figured the cheaper cars I buy, if I can pay less than $1,000, then what's the worst that can happen? I can't lose a lot of money there. And ultimately that would be correct because the most I lost on a car that year was like $100 because it was, they were all so cheap. So from April to May, I sold like 4 cars in April. I sold like 7 cars in May. May was 12. Yep, that's right. So it was 12 cars in May. And then June was crazy because I sold 31 in that month of June because after April and May, I had saved up around, I want to say it was like $7,000 to $9,000, $10,000 in cash just from flipping those other cars just over and over, flipping 20 cars and making $500 a piece. So I just went crazy in June. I just went and bought every car I could under $1,000 that ran and drove. And that ultimately led to me selling 30 in June, July, August. There was a month in September where I sold like 42. And that leads to this lot right here, which, we had changed the name a few years prior, so I just kept that name, Car City. But you can see here this fence line back. So from this, you can see, I see this brown fence to here. I was paying $20 a car to park here and sell them. And I didn't have access to the office except for occasionally doing paperwork. And there was a guy that rented out and did all the body work and stuff. So he was happy to let me park some cars because, the lot was big enough to fit like 10 or 15. So here I was buying, 10 or 15 cars at a time, stacking them in here. And, people would come and meet me here and sell it. And this little office is where I sold them. You can see it was very dingy. And it was constantly full of Bondo dust and chemicals because, this little door right here leads to the paint booth in the body shop right here. So it was a pretty rough experience. And for that entire summer, we never had AC because there's no AC in here. The winter we had no heater, and just doing what it took. And ultimately, we were selling 30 cars a month out of this dingy little place. And that kind of reinforced in my mind that location doesn't matter. People will come buy a good deal no matter where you are. So you can see the front part of this building, which is here. And about, I want to say it was in December, we were able to take over this entire building and use front to back. And that's what we did. So for, January 2017 all the way up until like May of 2017, I was, selling 30, 40 cars a month out of this shop right here. And, they were all under $3,000 cars. They were just cheap cars that we'd sell fast as possible. And occasionally I'd buy something unique, but it was working. We were making money. I was actually profiting. And most importantly, the cars were selling themselves because I was such a terrible salesperson that, I couldn't sell expensive cars, but if I could let the cheap cars sell themselves, that would be great. So here we come to January of 2018. Reverse. May of 2017. I moved into, me and my friend here, he was a body guy and we shared the rent, but we were both selling cars and we outgrew each other. So I moved into this place, which was $1,500 a month, and it was pretty exciting because it was really nice, compared to what we had been at. It was like a palace, but looking back now, it's a dump. But yeah, we had 2 bays here, 2 bays over here, in a nice little office, and we actually outgrew this place within about 6 months because this picture on the top is at full capacity, and this picture on the bottom left is a field next door, where it was in November and December of 2017 where I bought as many cars as possible. Every single car that was under 2,000, under 1,500, I tried to buy because I knew once February tax season hit, we would sell all of them, and that wound up being true because in February of that tax season, we sold 82 cars in a month, and it was absolutely crazy. Not to mention, for 2 weeks of that tax season, it was pouring rain, so this entire field was just mud and flooded, and having to walk through all that crap to get a car for a customer. In this picture right here, you can see we have about, I want to say it's 90 or 100 cars in inventory, which was crazy. And the reason we had to move is because the city came and told us you can't park in the grass. You gotta either put down asphalt or get the cars off the grass. And I'm not gonna stop buying good deals just because of the city. I'm not gonna give up inventory and profit. Hell no. The system's working. So what we did, we moved across town. We found this place open, which is where we're currently at right now. And the name was changed to Ocean Auto Sales because the previous name being Car City Auto Finance, we don't finance. So throughout this entire process from, selling these new cheaper cars, through here, through here, and here, I haven't financed a single vehicle. I don't do any financing. I don't have any banks that we do any loans in-house. No financing whatsoever. Now, occasionally people will bring me a bank draft from their bank, which is as good as cash, but we do not finance, and I refuse to finance no matter how many banks come here and try to get us to do loans with them. We just don't do it. We don't take credit apps. We don't finance. We don't do any of it. So this new place is huge, and here's the front right here, which it fits 40 cars. And then this bottom right picture, you can see through the shop. See, that's the back. It's twice as big as the front. So, we fit up to 140 cars here during the most recent tax season, and it was pretty amazing. We sold it was 80 cars again this recent tax time, but they were higher profit. But it was like 79 cars. It was crazy. So Ocean Auto Sales, I like the tropical. I go to Florida a lot. I like the beach. And ultimately, one of my goals in the future is to buy a beach house and, live on a beach somewhere. And that's why the name Ocean Auto Sales. Not to mention the branding and the uniqueness of it being in Oklahoma in the middle of the country has been invaluable, because everybody remembers Ocean Auto Sales because it's like, there's no ocean. Why is it called Ocean Auto Sales? And that was a little thing that I kind of stumbled into, was a very unique brand that everybody recognizes and remembers, because, at this point where we've been selling 600 cars a year for the last 2 years and 500 the year before, and you take that times, probably 100 people, because I usually figure for every one sale, there's 100 people that either contact or look at it or message or test drive it. So, that's hundreds of thousands of people that have come into contact with the brand, and it's really built up a lot of credibility. Not to mention, we have the highest reviews in all of Oklahoma for any dealership, let alone, used car dealership. And, 412 as of today. And, that should be well over 500 within a few months. And there's no other dealers, even CarMax, new car dealers, they all have less reviews. So that's a big, big thing that sells cars for us, is just our volume of reviews. We've got a super nice office, paint booth, lift, and none of this would have been possible if I had ever given up or gotten depressed, because, man, we didn't make money for so long. I was barely paying the bills. It wasn't really until we got to here that it was really making enough money for me to save. Because, all throughout this was just kind of staying afloat, getting ahead, paying off all my debts from this old dealership. Because, I lost 80 grand in that whole thing. I had a lot of stuff to pay off, and I was trying to avoid filing bankruptcy. So that's kind of my story, just constant failure, just over and over. And then here we are, the number one rated used dealer in all of Oklahoma, the best. I've got so much experience now that I can teach you guys how to skip that 5 years of learning yourself and not having a teacher and not having a mentor, and trying to figure it out on your own, which really sucks. And when you ask, why is this course any good? That would be the reason that I would give you, is I've learned everything on my own, from failures, mistakes, and trying to learn from other dealers and copy what they do. But not many dealers will teach each other, because everybody wants to keep their secrets. And flipping cars out of my apartment, my house, all the way back in college when I bought a motorcycle and sold it for a little bit of profit, trading. And I haven't even told you guys about the story where I traded a laptop up to a house, and I'm not even fucking with you. I took a $150 laptop and I traded it for a '01 Honda Accord that had like a broken timing belt, but it wasn't, the valves weren't bent. It was just a timing belt. And, I fixed that with the help of a friend. And then I traded the Honda Accord for a 2003 Mitsubishi Eclipse Spider, the convertible. And I traded that for a 2004 GMC Yukon. And, this was over the course of like months and months. And I traded that Yukon for a house in North Tulsa, which is, the lower income part of our city. And the house, the garage was burned out. So it needed remodeling, the garage. But, it was a house. It was real estate. And I owned it free and clear after I traded this Yukon. So, I probably put around $500 total in work throughout the whole process. And actually, going back to the Eclipse, I traded that Eclipse for a 1965 V6 Mustang. And then I traded that V6 Mustang for the '04 Yukon, which I then traded for the house. And, I put some work in along the way, but at the end of the day, I sold this house for $13,000 to an investor from California. And I took $150 laptop and turned it into a $13,000 house. And a lot of people ask me, what was the secret to you doing that? And it was bugging the shit out of everyone all day, every day. What I mean by that is I would text 100 people a day asking them if they wanted to trade for whatever car I had at the point, including, when I had the Mustang, took me a month of texting every single day until a guy with the Yukon was like, yeah, it'd be cool. I'll trade for a Mustang. And then when the house popped up, it was, the reason I put it on Craigslist, I put open to trades, including real estate. And this guy, he tells me, he's like, I got this house from, my grandma. She died, not in the fire, just passed away, never fixed it up. And he's like, I don't have anything to do. I don't have anything to use it for. I don't have any point to want to fix it up, and I traded him. And it was crazy because it was a house. At that point, I had never owned any real estate, let alone, traded for it. So then, I sold it a few months later, and that was a big part of the money that went into investing in our first location right here, because it was in between, living in these apartments and starting the dealership. A lot of these cars right here were paid for in cash from that house. And, that was kind of like the opportunity that came along and kind of allowed me to take a chance. And it failed, but I've taken a lot of chances since then when the opportunity presents itself. And one of the biggest keys is to put yourself in a position to take advantage of a big opportunity. And, that's what I've always been constantly trying to do, is just put myself in a position cash-wise and flexibility-wise to be able to take advantage of an opportunity. So kind of circling back, that's why this course is good, because there is a lot of failure that went into the knowledge that goes into this course. And a lot of flippers, they don't have that intense sense of failure that you guys are probably scared of. Like, obviously you're going to be scared of failure because, what if this doesn't work? What if I can't do it? And I've been there multiple times. So I will be able to tell you how to minimize risk and how to lose money the right way. Actually, is a good portion of one of the modules. So week 1, we're going to go over the new way of selling cars, the method that I've created and perfected, and nobody has, taught me it because I've had to learn it from scratch. Number 2 is, who are your ideal customers going to be, and letting the car sell itself, because I'm not a good salesperson. Some of you guys may not be good salespeople. But if we can let the car sell itself, that doesn't matter, and it won't matter. Week three is adding value to a vehicle and reconditioning, how to clean them up, what to fix, what not to fix, little things you can do to make the car look 10 times better. Week 4 is how to find and buy cars, including from individuals, the auction, etc. And then how to actually buy them and what to do. Week 5 is the pricing and selling of the vehicle, knowing exactly what to sell it for, what it's worth, and then actually going through the process of selling it, meeting someone, getting paperwork done. Week 6 is going to be about using rules and formulas, um, not only to minimize your risk, but to create consistent results and to always know what's going to happen. Because nothing's worse than the feeling of buying a car, not knowing the numbers, and then sitting on it forever or taking a big loss. And, for now, the last week, week 7, should you start your own dealership? And this week is going to go over all the pros and cons, my experience in being an individual flipper versus being a dealership, and all the factors that go into that consideration, including common misconceptions, cash versus finance, stuff like that. So that is our curriculum, and you're going to have some action items that you want to complete for this module. So 1, the 3 things pinup that was in the first few slides. Make sure that you remember the only 3 things that matter. It's going to be easy to get distracted, but focus on those 3 things. And whenever you're not sure what to do, or you may have a day where you don't have anything on your to-do list, refer back to that and look at what you can do to achieve those things. You're going to want to start, if you haven't already, but research your local market. And the $1,000 to $3,000 cars, this is especially for beginners. Some of you guys are like a lot more experienced. You may look between $2,000 to $5,000, but really know that market. You need to know it inside and out. What cars are selling under $5,000 and under $3,000? $1,000 to $3,000 cars are where you're going to make the highest profit margin and the least risk. Look on Craigslist, look on Facebook, OfferUp, Let Go, and the accompanying worksheet that's available for download. You're gonna take some notes, list what you notice, list what you see, and you're gonna really get a good idea of what's available for sale. And this is important because the cars you buy are going to fit into that market, and you want to make them as easy to sell as possible. So list the most common cars you see, and every area is different. Some areas the prices are way more competitive, and $1,000 to $3,000 doesn't get you anything, but $2,000 to $4,000 may be the sweet spot, and that's the price at which the cars go from being junk to running and driving pretty decently overall. And I'll give you an example. In our market, Tulsa, pretty much any car under $1,500, and especially under $1,000, it needs some major work like transmission, blah blah blah, and that's on the individual side. When you go to the auction, it's usually $500 to $1,000 cars, but you're gonna want to look for where it's really hard to find anything that runs decently, because that's going to be the start of where you're going to be, and going up, a couple thousand from there. So, including listing the most common cars, keep an eye out for which price that you can really, how do I put this? If you just had a car that ran and drive pretty decently, and you had it for $1,000, in my market, that car sells within a day. And if I had it for $2,000, it may not sell nearly as fast. So that's what you're looking for, is where you could take, like, let's say an 05 Honda Civic that runs and drives, decent, not perfect, might have a dent, who knows. But as long as it runs and drives, I will never have to sell it for less than $1,500 to $2,000, because it will always be the best car at that price here. And lastly, download the value add worksheet, and it's going to include some common things that, like skills that you can add to a vehicle to, uniquely offer. So, mechanics out there, obviously you're going to have mechanic skills to fix up some of the flips, including specific skills like, AC work, or you might be good at electrical, you might be good at this or that. Body work guys, you can obviously paint and do body work and fix up damaged cars. Some of you guys out there may not have any skills whatsoever. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I'm sure you have some experience with cars being in this course. So just list the things that you've had experience with, that you've done on cars, that you know about cars, maybe unique situations that you've come into contact with. Guys that are detailers, obviously you can clean up cars cheaper or better than somebody else. There's guys out there that, may be into interior work. You can fix up leather or whatnot, or install radios, or do electrical or modifications. Just know exactly what you're working with, and those skills are going to come in handy because those are unique things that you can do on a vehicle to improve the value at a very cheap cost. And lastly, just know that your competitive advantage is knowing more and having a plan. Most people that go to flip cars, they don't have a distinct plan, and they do not know their market like inside and out. They may have a good general idea, and that gets them in trouble because they don't know their numbers. Knowing more about the market, what you're doing, the process, the system, and having a plan to execute that system is going to, it's going to create consistent results, and it's a huge advantage. And just that alone is worth tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, in just having a roadmap. So this is Anthony with Pro Dealer Secrets, and we'll see you guys on the next video.